than visiting McDonald's for lunch or dinner, fast food as a kid might as well be one of the 7 wonders of the world. Whereas fast food as an adult can be the bane of your existence that you just can't stop eating. Much like a lot of kids, my favorite thing growing up at McDonald's was the chicken McNuggets. Nothing beats McNuggets with barbecue sauce or honey and fries. But did you ever wonder about how the McNuggets got made? I know you have. So this week we're going to go way, way back in the day, in the first of what will likely be a recurring series, as I review a training video about how to make chicken McNuggets from McDonald's from 1983. Like I said, this will probably be a series I do because I happened upon this particular video and then the YouTube algorithm started recommending tons of other official training videos from the 70s and 80s from not just fast food restaurants, but other restaurants and stores in general. For someone who loves nostalgia, this is like a treasure chest. And I'll link to this video in the description of the podcast because it's so much fun to watch. It's kind of familiar, but totally new for people that grew up in that time period. So the video starts by saying that this is official for McDonald's employees, trainees only, but yet here we are watching it. Somehow it got on YouTube. It's May 1983, so Chicken McNuggets were pretty brand new at the time. So this training video explains them and goes really in depth on how to make them. It starts off as we creep towards the counter of a typical 1983 McDonald's restaurant, but it's dark and there's this ominous music. And then you start hearing voices, and these voices belong to puppets that look just like the ones that they would have in the typical McDonald's commercials from back in the 1980s. So there's a regular hamburger who seems to be like a little boy with a higher pitched voice. There's a small French fries and a soda in that typical white cup. There's an Egg McMuffin that looks like an old granny. And then the king of all is Big Mac, who's the big star of McDonald's. And he's got this dignified British voice. And they're chatting about the mysterious box that is there. And the lid of the box starts to open with more scary music, like it's a UFO, and all the puppets are scared and shaking. And inside, naturally, are the chicken McNuggets. And the other McDonald's puppets think they're aliens. But the leader of the McNuggets, whose voice is kind of like Bing Crosby, starts to explain who they are and why they're there. I noticed right away that the leader of the McNuggets looked more like an apple pie than a chicken McNugget would. And one of the plot lines of this video is the fact that Big Mac hates these McNuggets and he's jealous of them. But the leader of the McNuggets explains that they're white meat and dark meat chicken and that they were created by French chefs. Then we start to get deeper into what would be the fever dream part. I'd recommend an edible or something as you watch this to make it seem more normal because it's pretty weird. The Bing Crosby McNugget explains about how they taste so good because of the 4 sauces they have. And with each of these sauces, the McNugget that gets dipped in them changes their personality to fit the sauce. So barbecue sauce turns the McNugget into a cowboy with the Texan accent. But then we get into the "it was a different time" part of the video, where for the sweet and sour sauce and hot mustard, which I didn't know they even had, the McNuggets are turned into stereotypical and somewhat racist depictions of Asian people. Especially the hot mustard one, because the McNugget turns into a samurai that's just shouting gibberish that's supposed to be Japanese. I guess you can chalk that up to being a different time, 40 years ago. And the final one, the honey sauce, which was always my favorite, the average-looking female chicken McNugget transforms into Marilyn Monroe, complete with the mole on her face. But the best part of each one of these 4 introductions of the McNuggets and sauces is that after they get done talking, some giant hand reaches in and grabs them to eat. and they kind of scream a little and say goodbye, so they get killed right after introducing themselves.
You said you had another one, McNugget?
That's right. Honey?
I was just a plain Jane. Until I took my first dip in a souffle cup filled with honey. Goodbye. I love y'all very much.
And Big Mac comes back in with his dignified British voice, complaining that the McNuggets must be hard to make. We get really crazy when the leader McNugget pitches it to a coach McNugget with a hat and a whistle to really give you the nuts and bolts on how to make McNuggets.
Look alive, shake a leg. Let's have that blackboard. Sit down, shut up, and listen up good. Coke? What's that? Gum in your mouth? 10 laps. Let's move it. Next guy talks. 50 sit-ups.
So all the other puppets are sitting at desks while the coach McNugget is at the front with his blackboard. And it's very much a sign of the times where the coach is as stereotypical as you could imagine. A lot of shouting, a lot of telling different puppets to run laps and do push-ups, acting surprised when they give correct answers, saying he thought fries were stupid until he heard the fries give a right answer. And even though it's puppets, it is very 1980s. There's a lot of 80s lingo. Things like far out or daddy-o or au contraire, mon frere, which was, God, that was said a lot in the 80s and early 90s. Anyway, the coach starts off talking about handle the McNuggets with care because they're shipped in frozen. In case you ever thought they were freshly made. I didn't, but you know. And you get clips spliced in of people at a McDonald's. There's a guy with a green uniform. And then the boss checking the boxes to make sure they're not broken. And they're very specific on how to store them. Literally keep them 2 inches from the wall in the walk-in freezer. And don't stack the boxes more than 5 high, which it's a lot of this stuff is common sense. But those of us that have been to McDonald's over the last 40 years know that that's not always there. Even back here in 1983, it was all computerized and timed so that all you really had to do was drop the McNuggets in the fryer and it would count down the timer. Halfway through it beeps so you know to shake the McNuggets so they're not stuck together. So it really is, if you have a shred of a brain, you could do this with no problem. I laugh because everything is McNugget-centric. McNugget sauce holder, McNugget transfer basket, McNugget scoop. This video in total is about 18 and a half minutes. I should have counted because they said McNugget got it 100 times. The thing I laughed at, among many things in this, was the fact that Coach McNugget said after the McNuggets are cooked, they can only be stored for 30 minutes. Now, honestly, how long do you people out there think they store McNuggets or burgers under the heat lamp or fries? Maybe that's just an urban legend from years of growing up, that some of the fast food stuff was stored under heat lamps for hours. But at least according to corporate McDonald's, it's 30 minutes. They even show you how to lay out the nuggets in the classic old-school styrofoam containers. 6-piece, 9-piece, or 20-piece McNuggets. And it was back then where the boxes on the top, it had the piece numbers on it. These are little touches that immediately brought me back to being a kid, because I always loved 9-piece McNuggets. I'm a big boy. I don't want just 6, but I'm not that big that I could eat 20. But to keep prospective employees and trainees entertained while they watch this video, there's an endless stream of cheesy jokes.
Coach? Hamburger, have you ever heard of raising your hand?
I don't have a hand, sir.
Oh, well, then will somebody please give Burger a hand over there? Now cut that out!
And after they get through the whole procedure on how to make the nuggets and package them and hand them off, then the coach makes all the puppets recite the whole thing again from the beginning, just for those employees that weren't paying attention during the video. And you could imagine the thousands of employees that had to watch this video in the mid-1980s. Back then, there was no internet. There were no smartphones. but yet you know that a lot of them didn't pay attention to the video. And then the first thing that happens when they make nuggets is they're burned or stuck together. You get the manager yelling at them, "Don't you remember that training video with the puppet McNuggets?" And then at the end, it's a big happy ending when Big Mac now likes the McNuggets and he and the Bing Crosby McNugget are chatting. And Big Mac tells the crew to suggest these McNuggets to the customers.
It's all up to the crew to prepare them right and then suggest them to the customer. That's the key. Just say, "Welcome, McDonald's. Have you tried Chicken McNuggets? Describe it, answer any questions, and it'll be a smashing success."
And that's the end of the McDonald's Making Chicken McNuggets training video from May 1983. Go and watch for yourself. I tried to add some clips in there and do justice to the video, but if you watch it, it tickles you right in that nostalgic funny bone. And when I tell you I found a lot of other training videos, I'm not kidding. I could theoretically make the training videos and this type of stuff the back in the day segment on the podcast and have enough to do for probably the rest of the year. But there's also the old educational short films I've been reviewing, because as much as I like sharing the 70s, 80s, 90s nostalgia, it's even better when I have, I guess, audio aids where I can share clips of things. And these videos were things I didn't even know about when I first started researching the podcast, so it's like a whole brand new thing. But let me know if you enjoy these types of video reviews, the training videos or the educational short films, because I don't have to restrict them to the back in the day segment. I could do another segment strictly for video reviews or something like that. But until then, go watch this video with Squeaky Voice Hamburger and British Big Mac and Bing Crosby McNugget. It's definitely a good time. It's Hamburger and British Big Mac and Bing Crosby McNugget. It's definitely a good time.